Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name's Lewis, and today we're going to do something different. I've come up with an idea. I've thought of an alternative style of video that I'm going to do maybe weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, in which I'm going to choose 5 different interesting and hopefully not depressing news articles on the BBC, and I'm going to summarize them, give my thoughts, and read them out loud so you'll stay in touch with what's going on in the world whilst learning new vocabulary, listening to me reading the stories, whilst also reading the articles at the same time. And I'll ask you what you think of each article. So, you can let me know in the comments as well. And if you like this style of video, please let me know in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe for more. So, without further ado, let's get the ball rolling. Let's kick off this video. And I'm naming this style of video Newsround because we're kind of rounding up all of the news. So this is Newsround with me, Lewis. And in today's video podcast, we're going to go over 5 different articles. The first is the best Christmas market in Europe, because, as you know, Christmas is right around the corner. The second article is Australia's social media ban. If this is the first thing that you have heard about this, you might be a bit confused. What? Australia is banning social media? Well, kind of. Only for people under the age of 16. Then the third article is about Istanbul, the capital of... Oh no, it's not the capital of Turkey. The capital is Ankara. Well, Istanbul, the most populated, and I'd say important city in Istanbul, and how it is a city crazy about cats. Then the fourth one is about the Netherlands and how it has floating houses. Yes, this is the country that is famous for, conquering the oceans with its deeks. Geniuses, the Dutch, you see. And the fifth and final article we'll be looking into is about Nvidia. Nvidia? If you're not sure what Nvidia is, it is the biggest company in the world which creates lots of artificial intelligence solutions, in particular semiconductors and chips that keep ChatGPT and all of these tech companies moving, building, and growing. And we'll focus on how the share price continues to soar. It keeps skyrocketing. So the first one, the best Christmas market in Europe. Well, I don't know about you, but in the UK, we have Christmas markets. We tend to call them German Christmas markets. So maybe they come from Germany. I'm not sure. But yeah, in Leeds, in Manchester, we have Christmas markets. And here in Brussels, I believe the Christmas market started last weekend. It usually starts like 5 or 6 weeks before Christmas. And it's always fun. You've got all these little huts, these little stalls where you can buy food, drink, presents. It's always a bit chilly. It's a bit nippy and cold, so you need to wrap up and wear many layers. Gloves, a hat, a scarf. But I think it's quite fun. Maybe this weekend I'm going to go to the Christmas market. But anyway, the first article, the best Christmas market in Europe. This is a title that is highly contested, with top contenders offering unique blends of history, atmosphere, and local flavor. Budapest, Hungary, is frequently cited for its focus on authenticity, emphasizing high-quality, handcrafted folk art and traditional Hungarian cuisine, such as the famous Kurtoskalax chimney cake, apparently, set against the glittering architecture of Vorosmarty Square and St. Stephen's Basilica. Another major champion is Strasbourg, France, which brands itself as La Capitale de Noël, which is the capital of Christmas. As one of the oldest and most picturesque markets, it features numerous smaller markets spread across the historic centre, with the magnificent Strasbourg Cathedral and a Colossus Christmas tree serving as main attractions. More recently, Zagreb, Croatia, has gained prominence, transforming the city into a 6-week-long festive event. Zagreb's markets are known for their lively atmosphere, a massive ice skating park, and a strong focus on local food and entertainment. Ultimately, whether a traveller prefers the historical depth of Strasbourg, the culinary focus of Budapest, or the sheer festive scale and entertainment of Zagreb, Europe offers a market to fit every definition of best. And it's funny because I haven't been to any of these cities. I've never been to Budapest. I've never been to Strasbourg. And I've never been to Zagreb either. Have you? Have you visited any of these cities? Or better yet, are you from any of these cities? If so, let me know. And if you've been to the Christmas markets of any of these cities, even better. You see, I think the best Christmas market I've been to is probably Manchester. And Manchester, in the UK, in the north of England, has a pretty big Christmas market. They're outside, scattered around the city centre, with lots of little huts. And it's a good plan at the weekend if it's cold, snowy, and a bit grim or gloomy. Going to a Christmas market is a great way to get in the mood for Christmas, to get a little bit festive. Because right now, I don't feel very Christmassy yet. But I guarantee that if I go to a Christmas market this weekend, I'll start to feel a little bit jolly and merry, and I'll start looking forward to Christmas. Next up, we have our second article, and this is all about Australia and the social media ban against teenagers. The title is Meta Starts Notifying Australian Teens of Account Shutdowns as Social Media Ban Looms. That's quite an unusual word, looms. If something is looming, it's like waiting for you, but waiting for you in a negative way or a dark way. So the ban is looming. It's coming up. It's almost threateningly coming up. And as I said, this is only for teenagers, but if you haven't heard anything about this news, I think this was a bill or a law which was passed earlier in the year to block and prevent Australian teenagers from, well, using TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. And I get it. I think it's maybe a good idea. If I was a teenager under the age of 16, I might not be happy. But from a lawmaker point of view, I understand why people might have decided to do this, because social media isn't very good for your mental health or your productivity. So let's see what happens. Maybe it'll be a revolutionary decision that will force other countries to follow suit and do the same thing. Let's find out. But let's start reading it as well. And I'll begin. Meta has begun the process of complying with the new Australian government ban on social media accounts for users under 16, which is set to take effect on the 10th of December. Starting immediately, Facebook and Instagram users in Australia, who the company believes are under 16, are receiving 14 days' notice via in-app messages, email, and SMS that their accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads will be deactivated. Meta will officially begin stopping access to existing accounts and blocking new registrations for under 16s on the 4th of December, with all affected accounts removed by the deadline. Messenger is excluded from the ban, and Meta has had to develop a way for users to maintain access without a Facebook account. Teens whose accounts are deactivated will have the option to download and save their content. Crucially, their accounts will be reinstated with all content intact once they turn 16, or they can choose to delete them permanently. Meta is using age assurance technology to identify accounts, noting that users mistakenly flagged as under 16 can use facial age assurance, video selfies, or government ID to verify their age. While the tech giant is complying, it continues to argue that its existing youth safety settings are a better solution than a blanket ban. Meta is the first major platform to detail its compliance, with other companies like TikTok and Snapchat also stating they will comply with the law. So there we have it, our second article. And what do you think? Do you reckon it's a good idea? Do you think people will actually, benefit from this decision? I think it might be controversial, but I think overall, the government are doing this with the best intentions in mind. And I think in the long run, over a long period of time, it could turn out to actually be a very positive thing that, as I said, other countries might learn from and instate their own social media bans. Only time will tell. But a couple of expressions here that I want to just recap. And the first one is a blanket ban. A blanket is what you use to, keep you warm when you are asleep or you're in bed. And a ban is a prohibition. So a blanket ban is when you ban everyone. So it covers everyone. In this case, it covers everyone under the age of 16 years old, which is interesting. That is a blanket ban. And I think there was another phrase that I wanted to just review as well. But let's see if I can find it. Okay. It might not have been the one that I was looking for, but it is turn. So their accounts will be reinstated with all content intact once they turn 16. Remember, this verb to turn, of course, means turn right, turn left, but it's also used for age. This year, in September, the 24th of September, I turned 33 years old. I became 33 years old. But anyway, that'll do for the second article, and allow me to move forward to the third one, which is all about Istanbul. Not the capital of Turkey, but the most populated city in Turkey, and it's a city where cats supposedly rule the streets. It's unusual, isn't it? It definitely grabbed my attention when I saw this headline. I was like, oh, I'm eager to find out more. Why are stray cats the rulers of the city? And especially such a big city as well. Now, I don't have a cat. I don't have any pets. I had cats when I was growing up, though, and I think cats are amazing. They're cute, they're adorable. And in fact, speaking about social media, just last night, when I was scrolling up and down on Instagram before falling asleep, I saw a video which was so cute. It was a woman who was lying in bed with 6, 7, or 8 little kittens just crawling on top of her. And I was like, oh, so cute. It's adorable. So I do like cats, and I do think they're very cute, but they can have a bit of a temper. If you stroke them in the wrong way, they might try and scratch you, which isn't fun at all. But anyway, enough about that, and I'll read this short article. Istanbul is renowned globally for its deep historical bond with its street cats, kedi, which are respected as communal pets and an integral part of the city's identity, rather than mere strays, stray cats. This unique reverence is profoundly rooted in Islamic tradition, where cats are considered ritually clean animals and are thus welcome in homes and even historic mosques. Interesting. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. You learn something every day. This tolerance is traced back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, who is famously said to have cut off his prayer robe sleeve to avoid disturbing his sleeping cat, Mueza. Historically, the cats served the vital function of protecting Ottoman warehouses and homes from rodents, which helped prevent disease outbreaks. Today, this legacy is continued through widespread community stewardship, with residents, shop owners, and municipalities consistently providing food, water, and small shelters throughout the city. The cats are often clean and affectionate, demonstrating their reliance on this collective care. Their presence is so foundational that it was immortalized in the acclaimed 2016 documentary, Kedi, underscoring Istanbul's reputation as a city that truly shares its space with its small, confident, furry inhabitants. I didn't know a lot of these things. I didn't know that cats were so respected. I didn't know that a lot of this is down to the Prophet Muhammad. And I didn't know that they had made a documentary about it before. And I'm curious to visit Istanbul too. It's definitely on my to-do list or to visit list because I have students from Istanbul. They're all really nice. They have mixed feelings about their city and their country, understandably, because I think there is high inflation, so the cost of living is very, very expensive. There's been some political turmoil, and maybe people don't always agree with the existing government, but that happens all over the world anyway. But when I see images of Istanbul and the rest of Turkey, it seems beautiful, it seems gorgeous. And given that I love cats, maybe this is the perfect reason to go and visit Istanbul. Let's see. And as always, let me know, have you been to Istanbul and did you see a lot of cats? Were they ruling the streets? You can tell me in the comments below. Now let's continue with the fourth story, and it is floating homes, the benefits of living on water. And as you can see in this image, there is a little one-floor house which appears to be floating. It appears to be floating on water, which, if we're speaking about the engineering abilities, is pretty impressive. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Dutch, people in the Netherlands, have a bit of a history of battling the ocean and adapting to water in a very, very effective way. Because I don't know when it began, but they started building all of these dikes because the majority of the Netherlands is below sea level. So they noticed that their land was being, well, flooded and taken over. They were losing land to the sea. So little by little, they started building these kind of like artificial mountains or hills or dams, which are known as diques, which means that the Netherlands doesn't flood, or at least it doesn't flood like it used to. And there are many pieces of land that is now developed with houses, cities, neighborhoods, which, if they hadn't done anything, they would have lost to the sea. And it would have just become the sea, which that in itself is worthy of, an applause. But let's get into the article. So, floating homes and amphibious architecture are emerging as a critical, multifaceted solution to global challenges like climate change and urban scarcity. Their primary benefit is flood resilience. Structures are designed to rise and fall with fluctuating water levels, offering a proactive, safe alternative to conventional construction in flood-prone coastal regions. For dense urban areas, building on water provides a crucial way to expand housing without contributing to urban sprawl or resulting to environmentally destructive sand mining for land reclamation. Modern floating communities, such as those in the Netherlands, are highly sustainable. They function as self-supporting systems, utilizing solar panels for energy, implementing rainwater harvesting, and integrated waste management. Beyond residential use, the concept is scaling up to include floating farms for food security and large-scale floating solar panels for renewable energy generation. Sounds impressive. Pioneers in the field advocate for the standardization and mass production of these homes to make them affordable and scalable for vulnerable populations worldwide. Ultimately, floating development represents a necessary shift from fighting water to living with water in the face of a wetter future. So that's the fourth article. Floating homes, floating farms, floating solar panels, and renewable energy farms. It sounds like it might be a necessary step as we move forward into the world that will be, well, unfortunately, disturbed and distributed. Well, not distributed, but maybe destroyed by global warming and climate change. So I'd like to see what it's like. It's essentially people living in boats, but floating houses. So let's have a look at some of the words and phrases from this article. And one that I'd like to review is urban sprawl. This is when you have lots and lots of cities and lots of buildings that cover a wide range of land. So you're not making the most of the land. Another phrasal verb to review is scaling up. To scale up is to increase in production. So here, the concept is scaling up to include floating farms. This means it's expanding. It's getting bigger to include this. And yeah, I think it's an interesting article. Let me know what you think. If you think this will be necessary in the years to come, that many, many cities around the world, in particular coastal cities, will need to, well, adapt and have floating homes. But enough about this. Let's move on to the final article and final story of the week. The title is Nvidia shares soar after beating earnings forecast. So this is speaking about the stock market. And recently I got quite into the stock market. So this for me is really, really interesting because, well, I invest in the stock market as well. And Nvidia is the biggest player, the biggest company that is publicly listed on the US stock market and the biggest company in the world. And it's an amazing story because 10, 15 years ago, Nvidia was nothing really. It was a very, very small company that didn't make a lot of money. But they seem to have predicted the future, and they have ridden a wave of investment in technology and, in particular, artificial intelligence. Because for AI to work, we need very, very advanced technology and semiconductors and chips. And Nvidia is the market leader, almost a monopoly in this regard. So we'll get into the article. Let me know if you invest in the stock market or you've heard of Nvidia. But a verb that I'd like to just review before we get into the article is soar. To soar is to skyrocket, to increase rapidly. And the opposite, to decrease rapidly, is to plummet. So you could say that while Nvidia's shares are soaring, another company's shares is plummeting, decreasing rapidly. So let's get into it. Chip giant Nvidia reported quarterly earnings that significantly exceeded Wall Street expectations for both revenue and future guidance, driven by overwhelming global demand for its chips used in artificial intelligence, AI data centers. The company, which is crucial to the AI boom and valued over $5 trillion, saw its stock jump as the results eased investor concerns about a speculative AI bubble. CEO Jensen Huang stated that sales for Nvidia's advanced AI systems were off the charts, and that key components like cloud GPUs were sold out, emphasizing the company's fundamental strength across every phase of AI. Revenue for the quarter saw a massive increase, primarily from the data center division. The chief financial officer confirmed the immense order backlog and anticipated further orders. However, a significant challenge remains the US export controls on advanced chips to China. The CFO expressed disappointment about these regulations, which restrict access to a vital market. Despite this regulatory hurdle, Nvidia's strong performance and optimistic forecasts cemented its position as the central technology provider for the accelerating AI infrastructure build-out across the tech industry. So Nvidia is the leader. It is the biggest company, worth over $5 trillion, which I don't even know how many zeros there are in a trillion. Maybe 12? Maybe 15? Too many zeros, to put it bluntly, to tell you the truth. But yeah, I like the stock market. It's something I've got into this year because I'm trying to maximize my savings. And if I'm trying to save money, well, I don't just want my cash sitting there in a bank. What I'd like to happen is that, well, I make a little bit of interest and gains on the money that I have in the bank. But, of course, investing is a little bit like betting, like gambling. So even if the chances are that your money will go up, it could easily happen in the opposite way as well. Your money could go down and disappear, in particular if there is a bubble and the bubble pops or bursts. A couple of words though, and where do we start? Where shall I start? Okay, off the charts. Sales were off the charts. This means that charts, diagrams, can't even show the sales because they have exceeded what your charts were. So it's another way of saying that the demand was immense. the sales were so high that we can't even put it on a chart. It was off the charts. And another one is, which shall we go over? Decisions. Let me review hurdle. So, despite this regulatory hurdle, a hurdle is what you have to jump over in a 100-meter sprint in the Olympics, where people will be running and then they jump. They jump over a hurdle. But in a more figurative way, we can use hurdle to say that you have an obstacle, you have a problem. So this is a problem to do with regulations. It is a regulatory hurdle. You'll notice that sometimes when I'm speaking for so long and I'm reading out loud, I might mix up my words from time to time. So I apologize in advance, and practice makes perfect. But anyway, that's it for this first episode of Newsround with 5 different articles that I have gone over and, well, given my thoughts. And I hope you liked this format. Fingers crossed. If so, please do let me know, and then I'll know how often to do another episode of Newsround, because, as I said at the beginning, I might do it weekly, monthly, fortnightly. It depends on the response. So let's see. But now it's over to you. What interesting articles or news have you read this week? Have you read any of the same ones? Have you read anything even more interesting? Let me know in the comments, and hopefully what you have read has been optimistic, because I made a conscious effort to choose articles that weren't just depressing related to war and suffering. I want it to be a bit different and not just things that are going to get you down. I'd rather choose things that'll get you thinking rather than get you down. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!